Brilliant. Okay, and well, welcome everybody to, yes, MDX's last pop-up of the term. So we're delighted today to be joined by one of our own. So MDX alumna Anna Simion is with us, and she's going to be discussing careers in technology and data with you today. So I'll allow Anna to introduce herself properly and talk about her Middlesex history, and so I won't spoil it for you. But just a big thank you, Anna, for being with us today. And to those of you who are on the call, big thank you for joining on what is coming towards the end of the term. Do ask plenty of questions. We'll try and get to as many of them as possible throughout the session. And yeah, we hope it's insightful and it gives you some food for thought for the Christmas period. So Anna, we're over to you.
Thank you very much, Jack, and I'd like to thank you very much for inviting me on, and welcome everybody. I hope you're ready and gearing to go for this last session after what's been a very unusual year. So my name's Anna Simion. I'm one of Middlesex's own alumni, and I'm also the Chief Data and Strategy Officer at a company called Sophis. And today I'm going to give you a little bit of an insight into what careers are out there in both the tech and data world. So without further ado, let's get cracking. So apologise in advance if this feels like there's going to be a lot to cover, but I promise you it's not going to be that heavy. I'm going to go through a bit about me first, and also what possibilities are out there, how you can find a job, and key timelines for applying as well, getting experience, which is sometimes a very common question I get asked by people who are either going through university or are just about to graduate, key skills that I think are important, the beauty of networking, and how you can also develop your own skills outside those lectures. So first and foremost, let me just start off a little bit about me. So I actually graduated in 2019 with a degree in maths from Middlesex, but I'm currently working with a leather goods firm, and more recently was appointed their Chief Data and Strategy Officer. So we focus on making leather goods. It can be anything from bags to watch straps, and we're very data driven. So we make sure that we understand customers' behavior to make sure that the products are fitted around their needs. So we're very data driven, we're very research and development driven. So we want to basically be geared around what the customer wants, as well as just listening to what the industry as a whole wants. Before that, even during university, I was involved in the machine learning research. I used to partner with financial firms, other universities, and also digital skills academies, and I wrote 3 papers from that as well, a couple in financial technology, and also I do a lot of work in consumer behavior as well, and how businesses can better utilize their data to be more receptive to customer needs. So that's a little bit about me, and let's kick off with what's out there. Now, in tech and data, there are so many opportunities. You literally have the world at your fingertips. You've got everything from teaching, you could go into data and analytics, so data science, data architecture, data engineering, even research. You could go into a scientific firm, software engineering. There are so many opportunities. And in the industry as well, there's so many places where having a tech degree or something data driven can really be useful. So healthcare, as a current example, is very powerful because of the current vaccine. Defense as well is a big area. Finance, even farming, for example, that's another big area where data is being very heavily utilized. Now, depending on what degree or stage you're at in your degree, you've got different layers of opportunities. So let's say, for example, you're in the middle of your degree and you want to get some experience in industry. The first thing I would suggest is you have a look at internships. Now, internships are there to get you immersed in a company and say, right, you're going to spend, let's say, 2 to 3 months getting hands-on in a project. And then you might, for example, come back in your final year, 3rd year, or even 4th year, depending on the type of degree you're doing, and you might work around that project and use that project to build your experience even further. So it really gets you into the nitty-gritty of industry and how you can get involved and hands-on work on a project that could benefit the business, it could add value to their end customer. It's a really important step in your journey. Now, for those that are maybe towards graduating, a graduate scheme is a great way to get your toe in the water in a certain part of industry. So one area, for example, that I'd see a lot of people go into is software graduate schemes, because they cover everything from software engineering, software development, the product life cycles and how software can be shaped around that. And these are typically longer. Now, they can be anything from a year to 2, sometimes even 3 years. They can vary between organizations. And it's great if, for example, you've got an interest in a particular area, but you're maybe not quite sure which area in particular. So for example, if you're interested in data, you might think, okay, I'm really fascinated by this, but I don't want to just jump straight into it because I'm not sure if I'm going to like it. I want to explore different areas. So it's a great way to experience something with a bit more depth, and it pushes your knowledge from what you've got in your degree a little bit further. So again, it's very much a hands-on, but it's going to allow you to experience that just a little bit more broader than an internship would part of the way through your program. Last but not least, graduate jobs. Now, graduate jobs are typically for when you've got your degree. Now, if you're someone who is very clear of what you want to go into, let's say, for example, you want to go into software engineering, there's plenty of graduate jobs out there. They can lead to very fruitful opportunities. And if you're really committed to going into industry in the long run, they are a great way to get your toe on the ladder and build your career up from there. They can be a bit scarce, certainly at the moment. There's not as many of them going around, sadly, as I'd like to see, but they are a great way to get on the industry ladder if that is definitely, when you finish your degree, what you're most committed to. But at the moment with COVID, it's a bit hit or miss with these, I'm afraid. So I'll cover how you can find them a little bit later on in the presentation. Now, finding a job, plenty of ways. The easiest one I would suggest is go to the careers fairs. You've got the grad stock where you've got employers coming to present to you what they can offer you, whether it's through internships or the likes of, let's say, graduate schemes, or even, let's say, graduate jobs. They'll be able to showcase what they could offer to you as a portfolio. Now, another way is look at companies that you've maybe got an interest in. So let's say, for example, you're interested in data and you want to go into a big accounting firm. You've got the big four, Deloitte, KPMG, Accenture. Go onto their website. They have plenty of information about different schemes that they can do for interns to up and coming graduates to graduate schemes. So if you see something there, you can also apply via their careers page as well. Now, if there's something that you're not sure about there and you want to take a more sort of generic look, you've got the likes of prospects and target jobs. Prospects is great for any sort of graduates. They do everything from internships to schemes to actual graduate jobs. So if I had to choose a personal recommendation, I would suggest prospects. And there's a lot of really helpful information in there as well. Target jobs as well, really, really useful. Plenty of opportunities that you can explore in there, ranging from the internships right the way up to those graduate jobs that I explained earlier. And last but not least, LinkedIn. LinkedIn has plenty of jobs listed on its site. If, for example, you go into the jobs category, let's say you're on your phone or your desktop browser, just type in graduate jobs. If it's software that you're interested in, just type in graduate software engineer, graduate software developer, and you'll get a list there. And LinkedIn's quite good now. You can actually apply most of the time, not all, but most of the time, you can directly apply through LinkedIn, which saves people a lot of time and it can sync your CV. It's quite handy. So they're the key places that you could easily sort of hunt for jobs. But if you really want to talk to someone and get a real feel for the industry and the company, definitely attend the grad stock. I remember attending it in my final year and it is excellent. There's a really, really wide variety of employers, plenty of information, and you can ask loads of questions. It's a really, really good thing to attend. So definitely recommend that. But for those of you who are pretty comfortable with that, or maybe been to grad stock before, just jump onto these sites, prospects and target jobs, and there's plenty of opportunities that are listed there as well. Now, when should I apply is a bit of an interesting one, because at the moment we've obviously got COVID to contend with, and companies' hiring patterns have been skewed a little bit. So this is rough dates that I'm going to give you, but obviously you're going to have to check if you're applying via a company's website directly. You are going to have to just double check to be sure if you're concerned about closing dates. They will usually put them on their site, so don't worry. But if there's any doubt, ask the company directly, drop them an email or give them a phone and just clarify it to make sure that you get your application in on time. Now, for internships, this can sometimes be between September and January. Typically, internships are going into the May, June the following year. So September, January the previous year is when they will start opening up for applications to ensure that they can get through the application process on time. Now, this is pre-COVID, so you might find there's a little bit more leniency. Some companies I have seen at the moment are extending applications to February because of the impact of grades and delays to the sort of interview processes. But if you're unsure, please do check the company pages for specific information, or as I said, give them a call if you've got any uncertainty whatsoever. But pre-COVID, it's usually September to January. Now, for graduate placements, September for final year students, sometimes even January, summer, they can really go on these placement periods. Again, because the interview process can very slightly differ company to company, most of them typically will not drag on as far as the summer, but I have seen some of the bigger companies, they definitely, because they get so many applications, they tend to drag the process on a little bit. But most of the time it would be around September, because that's when you get your results. And that's when you know what sort of benchmark you can pitch yourself to, or if a company's got certain entry requirements, you know exactly what you can aim for. But again, just check those company pages if you're not sure. Now, graduate jobs, because these aren't necessarily schemes, they tend to be a little bit more specific about their closing dates. Now, time they will close when they've got a large enough pool of applicants, because they may have an interview process that they want to put you through, but because it's not like a placement where you might have to go through extensive assessment centres, they tend to be a little bit more specific about their closing date. So, for example, I've seen graduate jobs go live and they stay open for about 2 weeks to a month, depending on how quickly the applications come in. But do ensure that you check the job description, because they're much more specific than the likes of an internship or a placement. Their flexibility, I'd say, is a little bit less forthcoming with these. So just make sure that you check. Definitely apply in your third year. They are going to be looking at your marks to see whether you meet the minimum. So, for example, most graduate schemes in tech will be looking for at least a 2-1 in a STEM subject. So again, it depends on the area that you're applying for, but let's say it's software. Some companies will say we want a 2-1 in computer science or a related field. But if you're unsure, do check the job description. And if you're really unsure, or you've got a bit of a question mark about the job description, don't be afraid to contact the company and just say, look, I've got this, will you consider me? Do apply in your third year though, because that's where you're going to need your marks to make sure that you're competitive for that as well. Now, my advice from all of this, again, there's quite a lot of discrepancy on these dates, but if you know that you're really wanting to go for a particular scheme, an internship, or even apply for a graduate job, my overarching advice is apply early. Because let's say, for example, you have to go through maybe 3 or 4 stages of an interview process. The earlier you apply, let's say, for example, something comes up in term time, there's a bit of coursework that's been moved. If you apply early, it means there's going to be more likely more flexibility from the prospective employer's stance. So let's say you've got an assignment coming up and goodness forbid, oh, I've got an interview this day. If you've applied early, it gives them more of a chance to be flexible with you. It means everyone's not panicking as much. It means that you can rearrange it, get your coursework done to the standard that you want, get it in, and then you've got time to breathe and really be as prepared as you possibly can for the interview. So try and get your application in early. It just saves so much hassle if you need to rearrange. Now, this is a really important one. I'm going to touch on this later, but I see a lot of people who submit one CV for these three. They keep the same CV for internships, placements, and graduate jobs. Please, please, please do not do that. It may seem like it's slightly off topic, but please make sure that you're very clear about what you're wanting to achieve. So tailor your CV for every role that you apply for and for each scheme you apply for, because the end objective of each scheme is not the same. An internship, you're likely to come back into the final year of your degree. A placement is like a year out. A graduate job is when you finish. So you have to just be very careful that you're very clear on what your end goals are. So just make sure that your CV is not one standard side of A4 or two sides of A4. Just really, really think about that and take care with it. Now, getting experience. Now, getting experience, it really depends what stage you're at in your degree. Now, for example, if you're in first year or second year, and it's the way that I used to do things as well. I used to have a part-time job, work at Tesco, Waitrose, Starbucks, Costa. It's really, really important you have that work-life balance. And most importantly, employers certainly nowadays, and I would count myself as one of them, I don't want to just see someone who has a phenomenal degree and gets firsts all the way through. I want to see that you can do stuff outside your degree, build up your people skills, time management. There's core skills that I want to see develop that you might have in your degree, but when you finished university, you're going to be out in the real world. You're going to be dealing with people, colleagues, customers, maybe. So it's really important that don't just feel if you're in your early years of your degree, you have to work extremely hard. It's very important, but I want to see that you can balance that. Get a job at Waitrose, like for example, at Christmas, there's a lot of people that the retailers are taking on. It will help those skills and it will help you as you go up your degree as well, when the workload maybe gets a bit tougher and there's more assignments. If you know how to balance a retail job with, for example, a degree, it's going to look really good to an employer. So in your early years, really think about that if you haven't done so already. Now, if you're in second or third year, that's when things get a bit more interesting. Now, some degrees will have a year in industry, some may not, or some may even have placement years. Every degree has different namings. What to say to yourself is, right, what am I really wanting to get out of my degree? Now, if you've got a year in industry as part of your program, so you can take a year where you go and get hands-on, immerse yourself in an area of interest, take advantage of it, get applications in, because you never know, if you really get hands-on and you're really good in the placement and your work is being valued by the employer, you never know what could happen post-degree. They may even offer you a job post-graduation. So if you're in that later stage, really think about where you could add value. Now, second and third year, again, internships is another area, but you'll have to juggle it and see what the stage of your degree is at and whether you've got the time and whether you've got that space to allow for, let's say, a 3-month internship. But that's the way to think about it, especially if you're in your later years and you want to build up that experience over time. Now, the graduate placement, again, as I mentioned earlier, it's really, really good for hands-on experience in a real live sector of the industry, because it's all really good having coursework from your degree and case studies, but if you can get into a company and actually get involved and immerse yourself, use, let's say, 2-3 years of your knowledge that you've built up and had to work hard for and do all these exams for, it's a really rewarding way to put your skills into practice. And that will really leapfrog you if you've shown that you've said, well, actually, I'm not just going to stick with what I've done in my degree. I'm going to push my skill set a bit. I'm going to be hungry to learn more. get hands-on experience if you can. It's really, really valuable, especially with the way the market is for jobs currently. Now, skill set. Now, the biggest one with tech and data is you've got problem solving. Employers love it, absolutely love it, because especially the likes of maths, computer science, or anything that involves science, you can think differently. You can look at a problem and say, well, I think I can find a simpler, more efficient way to do that. That's what employers love. But in my eyes, there's four key skills that all employers, irrespective of whether you're a biologist, mathematician, or computer scientist, are going to look for. These four: teamwork, being adaptable, good communication, and time management. These are the most critical because in a company, like even our own business, you never know, like the virus has caused a lot of disruption throughout companies. Sometimes you have to increase your workload, which changes one deadline, which can affect one team. So you have to show that you can be receptive to change. And the only way that you can do that is with these four skills. So be able to work as part of a team, work towards a common goal, and be adaptable. Work together to make sure that you can get to that deadline or get that project done. And ultimately, the way to do that is good communication and disciplined time management. So they're going to be really, really important skills, even before COVID, that I would encourage all either mid-degree students or people who are coming up to the end of their degree at Middlesex. Make sure that you can demonstrate these four core skills along with the problem solving, and that will really, really help you wherever you go in your next steps. Now, in the early years, let's say, for example, you're just finishing your degree and you're a bit worried that, oh God, this is going to be so much to learn because tech is all about enhanced learning. There's a lot to do. There's a lot to experience. The most important thing is the attitude. It's not necessarily the aptitude. If you can show that you're willing to upskill, and you can show that you're willing to learn, and maybe you struggled with a subject or a module, like for example, I wasn't very good at algebra, but when I went away, I tried to improve my skill set because sometimes I use it in my line of work. If you can show to say, right, I'm going to work hard and really, really master that, again, it's going to really, really be valued by employers. Now, again, a really super important thing here. Tech know-how may be overwhelming, but if you go in with the right attitude and you show that you're willing to learn and you've been maybe doing other stuff in your degree or case studies, you think, right, I know I can do better at that. The interviewers will pick up on that. Remember, people skills cannot be taught. I could teach you everything you needed to know about machine learning till you're blue in the face. But if you can't communicate it to my teams, then it's going to be fruitless for all of us. You're not going to learn, I'm not going to learn, and we're going to be leaving. We're going to be left thinking, well, I didn't really get anything from that, and nor are you. You're going to feel like I've not utilized my knowledge here. So be humble with it. Go in with the right attitude that you're willing to learn, and the tech can be taught as a secondary element. Now, for those of you, if any of you here are computing maths or any sort of degree within these fields, you might see this word crop up: exposure. Now, the most important thing here is not to panic. I've had several students contact me and say, Anna, I'm absolutely terrified. Do I need to go and swallow a book on Java or C or learn assembly language? Absolutely not. No, 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 no. When they're talking about exposure, they're saying, have you studied it or have you had some hands-on experience with it? So through your degree, for example, have you done a project where you've maybe coded a cash machine in Java, for example, where you put some stuff in and you need to output some numbers at the other end or output a withdrawal at the other end? That's all they're wanting to see from you. They do not want you to go away and swallow a textbook or make an app or go away and reinvent the university's IT infrastructure. When they talk about exposure, they just want to see that you've had some hands-on experience with it, and that's through your degree. You're going to probably do modules in it or a couple of projects, maybe even group projects. So please do not feel like you have to go away and swallow textbooks. I would absolutely not expect you to do that, because otherwise it's not going to help your knowledge. It's not going to be progressive, and you're never going to have time to learn anything effectively. So don't panic if you see the word exposure. That would be my critical bit of advice from there. Last but not least from that one, show that you're willing to upskill. When you go in as a graduate, like in our business, we're always passionate about people growing and developing. We don't need know-it-alls. We don't want you to come in being a know-it-all. We want you to come in and say, look, I may be able to do this, but I'd really like to find another way that I could do it. And that's where we can say, well, we can help you. There might be other qualifications that the company can help you to work towards, but go in and just say, look, this is what I've learned. Your degree, whatever stage you're at, you're going to get a bank of knowledge. Don't feel that you have to go out and throw it all at the employer at once, because they will take you through it. They'll add value to you. They will make sure that they can get you the technical know-how that you need to excel in your role. And if you show that you're willing to upskill, it's going to look really good to an employer. Now, my favorite one, and this is one, especially with COVID, it is absolutely critical. Networking. Now, networking, I'm going to admit I was a bit of a latecomer to LinkedIn because I've never been a fan of social media. I'm not a Facebook user. I don't use Twitter. And I was just a bit worried with all these social media sites becoming a bit addictive. So I never really thought of them in a very high regard. But I have learned over the past 2 and a bit years of using LinkedIn that it is probably the best way to get and learn, meet new people, find opportunities. It is critical in this day and age, and more so with COVID, especially when companies' hiring patterns have been thrown off key a little bit. It's a really important thing to network. Now, if you've not already done so, I would advise in the strongest terms to sign up to LinkedIn. Connect with your lecturers, connect with people in your class, connect with your head of department, connect with people in the careers team, because you never know. When you build your network, you might find someone contacts you and has an opportunity that could really change your life. So it's really, really important. If you haven't done so, it doesn't matter what stage you're at in your degree, please sign up to LinkedIn. It's really, really important. Now, this is something that I think a lot of people personally overlook. LinkedIn is all about meeting people. Of course, you can find jobs through it. As I mentioned earlier, you have that jobs tab, so you can find anything from C-level opportunities right the way down to graduates. You can find jobs. But in my eyes, you're connecting with people. Now, I've met a lot of people through LinkedIn, some of which are in our team today. We've connected on LinkedIn, we had a chat, they could bring value to the business, and they're in our business as we speak. So it's really important you utilize that networking aspect of LinkedIn. Don't just see it as a place to put your profile up and say, right, I'm going to be on LinkedIn, I'm not going to do anything. Connect with people. You may not feel comfortable with it, but if there's an area that you're interested in, let's say you're interested in software engineering and you're interested in getting into the industry, I would strongly encourage you to have a look around for people who are in that same industry, because I've found that a lot of people, when you connect with them, they're really welcoming. They'll give you good advice. They can even give you tips. So let's say if you've applied for a role, they might even say, just make sure that you're up on these areas, etc. So really, really make an effort with LinkedIn, and you might find it really adds value to your job search in future, and it might also save you the pain of having to go through a 5-stage application process with a big company. It's a really, really valuable tool. And most importantly, this could happen. Now, to give you an example, I got my job 2 ways. I spoke to someone at an Apple store, but I also connected with this individual on LinkedIn. We got talking. We happened to be at a session at Apple in London. We got talking, and now I'm running the business and in charge of the data and strategy. So you never know one simple conversation where it could lead. And if there's not an opportunity, keep in touch with them. You never know. Businesses needs to change all the time. So don't feel like you have to just sit on LinkedIn and just be idle there. Do network with people, because honestly, it may not happen instantly, but it's a really, really invaluable tool to get your name out there. Now, last but not least, beyond the classroom. Now, gone are the days that companies are just looking for high flyers with first class honours in this and awards here and there. This is 2020 going into 2021. We've had, sadly, the most horrendous pandemic, which has cost a lot of lives, but also it's changed the way that companies are looking for people. So if I was to give you one core bit of advice, you need to get involved beyond the classroom. Being in lectures and getting firsts in your modules is not enough. I'm looking, certainly if I was hiring or expanding my data team, I don't want someone who's just going to come in and pass me a bit of correct code all the time. I want someone who's an all-round thinker, a doer, and is passionate about stuff beyond the day job. And a lot of times people forget, and sadly even more so than ever, competition's tough now. It's really, really tough. And I'm afraid within 2021, it may even get tougher. We don't know how the market's going to shift. So you need to stand out at whatever stage in your degree you're at. You have to do something that's going to get you ahead of the competition. Have a part-time job if you're in your early years. Get involved in outreach. There's so many things that you can do. And as I said, you just can't come to an organization. Like, we don't just take people with good marks. We want to see an all-rounded individual, someone who can really add value through knowledge, and someone who's a bit more than just what we would call a book buff, someone who just likes having their head in a book. We want to see a bit more than that. Tell us about stuff that you've been doing outside the classroom. Get us excited about why you want to be part of our team. So there's several ways. Like, you've got, for example, the department outreach events. For example, when I was at Middlesex, I took part in what was called Smashfest. And we were there, I'm just trying to remember, I think it was in my first year. We went there and we were talking about geography and maths to everyone ranging from the adults to young children who were passionate about science. And there was also a very interesting one where we had the Guinness Book of World Records, the largest trash volcano erupted. It was the largest science experiment that an outreach event had done, and it was awarded the Guinness Book of World Records. It's got its space now, but it was a great way to showcase my love for science, because I have to admit I'm a big geography fan. I love anything to do with rocks, and I'm a climber outside of the day job. But there's so many ways that you can get involved. So you've got your departmental engagements, do get involved there. You've got the New Scientist as well, which hopefully will post-pandemic and maybe next year be up and running again. Definitely a way to get involved. And one thing I would also suggest is, if you've not already done so, look at becoming a student voice leader. Now, I was the student voice leader for my cohort for the 3 years of my degree. And I loved every minute of it, because we were working with everyone from the department to the student union to really bring the student experience to life. Because, as some people say, your degree is going to be the most important 3 years of your life. It's going to get you on that ladder to getting your dream job and really furthering your career. It's a really, really important time. And I loved the fact that I was able to work with people to shape the student experience and to make them feel like when they were to leave Middlesex that they had the best 3 years of their life. It was an incredible experience, and it was a pleasure to work with people on that initiative. So if you've maybe thought about it, or let's say you're going into second year, or let's say, for example, for your next year, if you've not looked at it, I'd encourage you to have a look at it. It's a really exciting way to get involved with the wider university body. Now, to round off, I've got some final tips. It is a tough market, there's no denying about it, but STEM degrees are always really highly valued by employers. They love these degrees. As I said, the problem solving is the big attraction. You can think differently. You can come up with solutions in a more efficient way. That's what business is all about. How can I do something better? That is the core thing. And to be fair, although companies' hiring patterns are changing, I was having a look recently, and there's still a lot of companies, especially the larger ones, that are still hiring for interns, graduate schemes, for placements, for graduate jobs. There are companies hiring. So if you look at those links that I sent you at prospects and target jobs, there is definitely employment out there. So don't feel like there's no one hiring, because there's definitely are, and you could be their next big hire, as we'd say. Most importantly as well, take advantage of the support. Like, you've got MDX Works, you've got the departmental advice, you'll have a supervisor. Don't be afraid to ask for help, because if there was anything that I took away from Middlesex, the staff cared about you. They want you to do well. They want to see you succeed. So don't feel like you have to put yourself in a corner and say, oh, I'm not sure how I can get help. The team are there to help you, whether it's MDX Works or your department. They want to see you succeed. So if you've got questions, please, please, please take advantage of the support on offer to you. And most importantly, be yourself. Don't feel like you have to write down what the interviewer wants to hear or what the application wants you to hear all the time. It's very important that you're yourself. So, for example, let's say you're going for an assessment centre and you're just about to be asked a question and it's a bit technical and you're a bit worried and you've maybe not covered what the interviewer is asking you. Don't be afraid just to say, I'm not sure, I haven't covered that yet. Because for every time that you do something, you're always going to learn from it. It's always going to be an experience, and it's something that you can go on to improve for the next time. Last but not least, be fearless. Because in my eyes, if you don't take the risk and try something, then you're never going to know if you're good at it. Like, admittedly, when I came into the business that I work in now, I was a little bit anxious. I had worked with businesses up and down the country previously, but I was a bit uncertain and had to take time to find my feet. But you have to try it. You have to try it, because the more stuff you get your hands into, the more you'll eventually find what you're really passionate about. And that's what's going to enable you to do the best work that you can do, is to be fearless. So on that note, I'm hoping that was insightful, and I'm more than happy now to take any questions, and thank you very much for listening.
Thank you so much, Anna. That really was so insightful, so much covered in such little time. So really appreciated, and I hope that those on the call have taken a lot away from that. So we do have some time for some questions, as Anna pointed out. We've got one already from Baron Anna, who asked this question earlier, and he said, for a postgrad where grades will be determined around November 2021, how would you go about applying for jobs with grade requirements?
Okay, so in that case, what I would suggest you do is you would apply with your pending grades. So for example, if you've got pending or predicted grades, just make it clear in the application to say, look, I'm expecting my final results here, but here is my expected grades. Companies are allowing for that, certainly more so than ever because of the pandemic. So just apply using the pending marks. That's not a problem.
Great, thank you. And next question is from Hamed, who says, I think they're asking around what opportunities there are for international students, so graduate programs for international students. Maybe I'll rephrase slightly, Anna, to say, how would you go about approaching looking for a graduate role if you were an international student who may have some restrictions on visa and things?
Right. Okay. I'm going to be honest, most larger companies are just being careful how I phrase this. Sponsorship is quite a tricky area. Sadly, even before COVID, has been a bit of a troublesome area. So the best thing I would suggest is, if you're an international student, you're more likely to get sponsorship, for example, because that's typically what organizations would require. Again, the whole immigration thing's changing, but you will typically find the process is much more simplified at a larger business, because basically the way sponsorship is working is the company is paying to bring you on board to ensure that you're satisfying visa requirements, for example. So if you're looking as an international student, look at the bigger companies. The job descriptions are always much more clear cut with them, and they will generally always specify if, let's say, it's open to all, or if you have to have right to work, go to the bigger companies. The smaller ones is where you'll hit more of a roadblock. And it's certainly what I have seen when I've mentored other students in the past.
Great, thank you. And if you are international students, we do have a dedicated section on mdxworks.com where there's loads of great advice around looking for graduate opportunities, placements, and the like as an international student. So do keep an eye on that page. And we'll also have a new page launching on UniHub in the new year, dedicated solely to looking for work as international students. So keep your eyes peeled for those. Any other questions from anyone? Yeah, so we've got one here. It says, could you give some advice on how to balance extracurricular activities with studying, with working, and not feeling like you're going to burn out?
That's a great question. Right. To give you an example, I used to work in my very, very early years. I used to work Saturdays and Sundays. So I worked about 16 hours at the weekend. And then I would take part in a sport on Wednesday afternoons. That's as far as I would go, especially in the later years when the workload tends to go up and there's typically a higher workload and more deadlines. Everyone has their own fine tune, and you might have to experiment a little bit to see how you feel. Like I started off at about 16 hours, but then I cut back ever so slightly. So I'd say start with, for example, 16 hours working a weekend. Wednesday afternoon is typically in a university timetable, traditionally sports afternoons where the societies have events, or you can go and attend, let's say, tennis or badminton. But you'll have to just weigh it up in your own mind what you feel comfortable with and what you can stick to. Because there's one thing taking it on, but you have to be able to stick with it and also be adaptable depending on the needs of your coursework. So try it, and you'll have to sort of test the waters a bit to see where that comfortable medium is for you.
Great, thank you. Anyone else have a question for Anna? Yeah, so we've got one here. I say I'm an international student doing an MSc and I have 65% in my bachelor's. What kind of internships or graduate schemes do I apply for?
Okay, do you mind me asking what's his degree in? Is it
You just want
by
to
is it
allow that.
biology or maths, computing?
Okay, we'll just
So I
see.
appreciate it's quite a broad area. So if I know what subject he's doing, then I could try and give more tailored advice.
No, that's fine. Shrove, did you just want to add to that? So it's network management and cloud computing.
Okay, so there's several different internships that you could do, or schemes. You could now, in terms of networking, I don't really see much internships in that area. Now, cloud architecture could be one that's possible. Software engineering might also be one. Like, unfortunately, I haven't seen many in the field of networking specifically. Like you could go into technical support or network management, but internships in that area, I'm afraid, are a bit scarce. I've not seen many. There's no harm, there may be some out there, but I've personally just not seen many in that particular field.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that which you touched on earlier, Anna, is trying to connect with people on LinkedIn who are working in that area and see if there is any chance for some virtual work experience or some work shadowing or anything like that.
Absolutely.
We have another question here. So what
Sure.
projects best demonstrate the ability for someone coming from a non-STEM degree? So what could someone get involved with project-wise if not traditionally from a STEM background?
Well, in my eyes, there could be several. You could always get involved with a departmental outreach. So, for example, let's say you were doing business, but you had an interest in robotics. Please correct me if I'm wrong, but there is a robotics society. So you could get involved with outreach events and societies within the university that maybe do hackathons or robotics events throughout the year or competitions. So that could be a way to get exposure to the area and say, well, I've worked with this team from the first term to the third term to build this, which has sparked my interest in this field. So that would probably be the easiest way to get in, because it gives you a chance to see whether you really enjoy it. Outside of that, you could then, as I briefly mentioned earlier, you could try and get involved in the likes of New Scientist, get involved in events where you're talking passionately about the areas that you're interested in. So even if you've maybe not come from a background, but you've got an interest and you maybe read around, that would be the way that I would suggest breaking into the subject area.
Brilliant, thank you. More questions coming in, which is great to see.
Sure,
So
yep.
next one, I have 3 years experience as a project engineer and have now completed my first year of a postgrad in engineering management. I have experience doing part-time jobs, working at Subway. Should I mention the same experience in my CV for job search?
Yes. Now, the way that I would, the first thing I would say, because this person, you've already got 3 years as a project manager or within that role, the most important thing I would be looking for is from your recent role, you'd have to show me some achievement-driven results from that role. So for example, if you've already got industry experience in that area, with a company, tell me what achievements you've got from it. Subway, like, you tend to find, and I have myself, I take this approach that if you've got commercial experience, let's say 3 years, for example, as a project manager, for example, I'd be looking at the results or what you've achieved, because that is slightly unusual, especially if you're maybe working and studying at the same time. I want to see results from that job. That would weigh more heavily in my case than a job at Subway, to be perfectly honest. But you'd have to weigh it up with achievements. If you're unable to demonstrate tangible achievements to me, then I would look at also the jobs at Subway to see, well, what can I put together to put this candidate in the pool of shortlists.
Fantastic. Next question, again from Shoaib, saying, is there a way that I could get work shadowing in London before going for a graduate job? So either paid or unpaid. I would like to do this, but not sure how to go about finding that work shadowing.
Okay, I'm going to be very honest. Work shadowing is not as popular as it used to be now, mainly because of data protection, security, and also confidentiality. Now, it really depends what sector you're going into. Now, if you're looking for work shadowing that's paid, I would suggest you look at internships if you're in that stage of your degree. Gone, sadly, are the days that you could just call up, for example, a network security firm and say, look, I'm at this stage of my degree, I'm looking to get some experience. Could you give me a day of work shadowing? Because of GDPR, the whole privacy rights and network security, and even just company security, they're trying to formalize the process a bit more. So if you want to get that sort of experience, your best bet is to look at the likes of an internship. If you've only maybe got the summer, or if you've got a year in industry as part of your degree, then have a look at that as an option. But work shadowing on its own it's very, very rare, I'm afraid.
Yeah, and another thing that you could think about, Shoaib, is potentially pitching ideas to organizations and personnel who you connect with on LinkedIn. So for example, if you've got an idea for a particular project that you could work on for a company based on a bit of research that you've done about them, you could say, you know, I'm happy to do a 2 to 3 month project on this for you. That in itself is still really fantastic experience that you can gain, and you know that will go towards your longer term portfolio. So don't think just because it hasn't got like the title of internship or placement, sometimes there are ways around this just to get the experience that you're looking for.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, any final questions for Anna? Might be one more here. No, that's okay. Brilliant. No, well, if that is the case, again, just a huge thank you, Anna, for today. That's really insightful and some fantastic responses to questions, and really great to see so many students here. I think this is our term record for a pop-up, so that can't be too bad
Fantastic.
at all on the last days of term. So huge thank you to you. I'm sure we will be able to do something again in the new year, and there'll be other sessions
Absolutely.
where Anna can be involved. Big thank you to all students who have joined today. As I said, it's late in the term, so we really are grateful for you giving up this hour to join us. So I guess, yeah, all that's left to say is have a wonderful Christmas break and New Year, and relax. And if you do take away anything from today and you can implement a couple of those things over Christmas, even if it's just, creating a LinkedIn profile, for example, that would be a really great place to start your new year. So yeah, wishing everyone a good break, and thanks so much again, Anna.
No worries. Thanks again, everyone. Stay safe, and we'll hopefully be back to normal in the new year. Thanks again to Jack and MDX Works for inviting me, and stay safe, everyone.
Take care all. Thanks. Bye.
Thanks now.